I'm going to call this meeting to order at 5:32. This is our annual board reorganization meeting, so I get to kick this one off. So the first thing we're going to start with is an election, reorganization of the board. So the first officer that we're going to elect for is a school board chair. So are there any nominations for school board chair?
I nominate Rick.
I'm not sure he's gonna be in favor of that, but you could play the card of if you're absent, you're
Right.
your chair. Are there other nominations? Hearing none.
Can we
So
really do that to Rick?
Yeah, should we?
I don't think we should.
So I'll just give you a foreshadow that he has already indicated that he wants to come off the SU. We are not at the board reorganization for the SU board meeting, but he's tipping that he wants to step back a little bit, so he's not going to run for the SU board seat. So it caught me by surprise on that one more. I'm just not sure that's a position that he's wanting to take at this point.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you want to keep that nomination out there? Do you want to nominate anyone else?
No, I'll nominate Polly.
Okay, your nomination for Polly Rico for board chair. Any other nominations? Hearing none, all in favor of Polly Rico for board chair, please say aye.
Aye.
Devin, we'll do it by roll for you. Are you in
Doesn't get to
favor?
vote.
Oh, she doesn't get to vote yet.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, Polly, congratulations, you are a new board chair.
Thanks.
And I'm gonna actually turn this over to you and I'll give you the reorg checklist.
So, let's see. Okay. Okay. So next we need to organize with the vice chair. I would like to nominate Moore Greenwood for vice chair. I'll second that. Oh, that's me.
I'm giving it all back to you at this point.
Okay.
That's all.
Yeah, so, we have Mort nominated for vice chair, having no more discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, and aye and aye. So moved, next we have to nominate a clerk. Do you want to specify clerk duties again?
They would take minutes of the meetings if Amanda or somebody else was not available. In theory, they could need to chair the meeting if the chair and the vice chair were not present.
In reality,
Yeah.
if the chair and vice chair were not present, you wouldn't
Have a clerk.
necessarily have a quorum.
Right.
Close.
Oh, you could have a quorum, I suppose.
Yeah, you could. Sarah, how do you think about clerk? Sure. Okay. I nominate Sarah Herdevy for clerk. And having no more any discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Sarah is the clerk. This next one.
So this is the part where you're gonna look for your supervisory union board
Yeah.
representatives.
Right.
And currently, you had Polly, Kevin, who's no longer on, and Rick has indicated that he does not want to renew that board seat.
We need
Two more.
two more.
Well, you need to do a whole slate of three.
Yeah,
You need to
right.
reorganize for all
No,
three.
exactly. So,
nominations?
Anyone have a nomination?
I would say for folks who don't know,
Yeah.
Shelley Draper and Devin Lumberg are your two new board members.
Right.
Because Devin is attending remotely, she hasn't been able to do the oath of office, so she's not able to vote yet at the meeting, but can be nominated for things.
Oh, can be nominated?
Yeah.
Okay, so let me
Just
just go over briefly what the SU board would entail. So, you have the SU, underneath the SU are the two districts, NMB, which is Montgomery, Bakersfield, Berkshire, and Shelton. And then the Enosburg-Richford is on the other side. So we have 3 from Enosburg-Richford and 3 from NMB, feed up to the SU. We meet the 3rd Wednesday
Most months.
most months, at 6:30, once a month. And then, yeah, and so we basically take care of the SU side of things. So, I would be willing for a nomination. Would either of you be willing for a SU nomination? Shaylee said yes. Okay. Do I have another one?
It has to be 3.
3.
Sure.
Okay. So Mort can do the nominating then.
You can do that as a slate.
Or, I'm sorry, and I should say, okay, never mind. Go ahead.
I nominate Sarah and Shaylee and Paula for the SU board.
Having no more discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? So moved. Okay, next, committees. Policy committee 2, have we had 2 in the past?
So we switched when we merged to having 2 for each district. Because we used to have 1 per town. We used to have 1.
That's right, Amy was with me.
Right. So you've had 2 members of the ER board serving on the policy committee.
Okay,
So the policy committee meets monthly on the 2nd Wednesday of each month at 3:30. It's usually about an hour. We have been meeting virtually. We have another meeting tomorrow, and we'll discuss whether or not we remain virtual.
tomorrow's game.
Excuse
No, that was the February.
Oh, February one.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, March.
Yeah.
March.
Oh,
Yes.
that's the
Confused.
repeat.
It was
Yeah.
confusing.
It
when
was
came to- Because there was an
confusing.
email that came out today that said it was that email, a response to that email that said canceled, but it's really for
Oh,
February.
well,
You're right, and now that I think
Remind
about it, it was
tomorrow
March.
then.
But it was confusing.
Yeah, it was
Right away,
confusing.
okay, yeah.
So it is.
So it's-
It is.
It's one time a month, about an hour. We review all of the policies that guide the organization. So over the course of a 3-year period, we try to get through every policy in that cycle to just review and make any revisions. We look at the Vermont School Boards Association model policies, and we look and see if there are any statutory changes that are required by their model policies. So we'd be looking for 2 people to serve in that capacity.
I don't mind remaining. And can I, maybe this is misspeaking, but I feel like the 2 positions could almost, no, sorry.
Well, I mean, you don't, if you can't make it,
You can't make it. It's not like you need a quorum. It's just basically for feedback.
Right, and if, sometimes when people can't make it, they can still review the policies and send their feedback to Doreen or I in advance of the policy meeting, so it would be best if we could have 2 that would do it on a regular basis, so that we have more eyes looking at policies,
True. I was just thinking as far as spreading thin.
right?
Yeah. Devin. Hi, Devin.
I wonder if Devin has.
I can hear you. You were broken up quite a bit, so I didn't hear what your question was.
Oh, okay. We're talking about adding members to the policy committee, which basically means that 2 members of the board attend a Wednesday afternoon meeting once a month to read through policy to see if there's any changes or any feedback we have for changes. Is that anything that you would be interested in, or, I mean, you don't have to, I was just wondering.
Well, where would that be?
It's usually met here in the Enosburg Library at 3:30. It's not optimal time, but that's the time.
Yeah, so that's something I'm interested in, but I absolutely cannot do only because I'm working. I work full-time as a medical assistant and I work down in Colchester at the neuro rehab. So my hours in the morning are from 8:30 to 5. Part of the reason why I'm on video today, besides the fact that I have a nasty stomach bug started here, is because I couldn't get out of work early enough. We're extremely short-staffed. So going forward in the meetings, I have asked my coworker to switch so that I can actually make it in person. But as far as being able to go on a weekday and essentially at a 3:30, it's not practical for me.
Yeah, no, that's understandable for sure. You can do it? What? So, do you want to throw a nomination for Moore and myself?
I nominate Polly and Mort for the policy committee.
Having no more discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And all opposed? So moved.
Negotiations.
Oh yeah, negotiations committee. I cannot, you need 2 people. I can't be.
Well, we have 2 entities that we negotiate with. We negotiate with support staff and teacher. So you couldn't do teacher.
Right, I can do support staff.
What we have done in the past when we've had conflicts with people being on the board, having spouses who work within the system, is we've split it. So Kevin couldn't do support staff and you couldn't do teacher. In that circumstance, you could take
Do together.
Right. One
And
position.
negotiations, so it depends on the contract. So sometimes it's 1 every year, sometimes it's every 2 years. I don't think you've ever done 3 since I've been here.
We have had, but we went for a while having to do it because of changes in healthcare and merger.
Exactly.
We had to do I think 2 or 3 in a row.
Yeah.
But we try to alternate when we can. We're kind of on a pattern right now where we're hoping to not have to do support staff and teacher in the same year, because it's a lot to negotiate both of those contracts in a year. We know we're up for negotiation with support staff next year. We're negotiating with teachers right now. So I'm not anticipating we'll be negotiating with teachers next year, but we haven't settled on a duration.
Can we hold off on that one? Cause I feel like Rick's our guy
Currently
on
it's
that
Rick
one.
and Sarah.
What's that?
Currently it's Rick and Sarah, and you could
Oh,
certainly
yeah,
do that again.
He didn't say anything about,
not doing that.
right.
Okay, then how do you feel, Sarah, about continuing?
Yes.
Okay, so I nominate Rick and Sarah to the staff negotiation, or just to the negotiation.
Right.
There you go. Okay, so having no more discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. And then superintendent evaluation committee, you don't pull that from the SU?
So I don't remember that. That must have been in the standard Vsba. I took their checklist for
Yeah.
committee
I feel like
assignments,
that's
so
an pulling from the.
I think you already have a process at the SU board
Yeah,
for how you're gonna run that.
exactly, I feel like.
So and you could talk to the board about whether or not you want to have more input than at the SU board level.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Right, so that if the SU has a process to reach out to the district boards for feedback when it comes time for Lynn's evaluation. So even though the evaluation's done at the SU level, that your feedback is kind of given to the SU to make the determination.
I think in this model checklist
Yeah,
from VSBA,
Yeah.
I think it would be that you'd have 2 members from each board that would come together and help to write
to write
the
the
evaluation.
evaluation. Okay,
You don't think it's because, in many unified districts, there's no supervisory union?
that's
probably
what I'm
could be.
wondering.
So I think it's because we have a supervisory
It could
union
be
that's
that.
done it that
I
So
feel
way.
like
just leave
it's
it.
because we're already on that board. so-
And you already are gonna get feedback
Right.
Yeah,
from the district boards, so we could skip that one if you want.
okay, let's, I do, I
That's a
feel
good
like
point,
that's
Beth.
redundant.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's a good one.
Discuss or make changes to the charges.
I think you're good there. I think you go down to operational.
Operational, regular board meeting schedule. So Devin, you talked about the meeting time being not conducive. We can talk about that if you wanted to change the meeting time, if 5:30 is good, if you wanted to move it later. That's up to you.
Rick did reach out this morning and asked that I give some feedback on this on his behalf, that 5:30 is very challenging for
Yeah.
him. So he was hoping that the board would consider, have a conversation about pushing back to 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock?
I'm okay.
6 o'clock would work better for me as well. It would give me enough time to at least get, it would be pretty close in Richford, to be honest with you. The first 10 minutes or so may have to be televideo for me if we did it at 6, not a huge deal. Like I said, most times I may be able to switch with my partner, but 6 o'clock for me would be phenomenal.
Okay. How about Shana, does that work for you? Is 6 okay? In theory, yeah? Okay, you wanna motion to
I'll
do
make the
that?
motion, change it to 6.
To 6, and is the day of the week okay? Tuesdays, I think Tuesdays work. So, motion on the floor, to change the meeting time to 6 o'clock. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And I'm an aye, so moved.
I think you can skip the next one.
Good.
We'll do that at the SU.
Designate places for posting meeting agendas.
Is there any proposed change, or do you want to maintain the existing?
I think
Posting
existing makes
sites.
sense. What about you? Don't fix what's not broken. Agree on whether to use Robert rules for small boards. So, Robert's rules for small boards is you don't need a second. We're just making a motion and then voting. You don't
The
need
chair
a
can vote.
second. Yeah, and the chair can vote.
Right.
So if you are okay with continuing that, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, Mort makes the motion. I'll take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Goodness gracious. Okay. Discuss and adopt code of ethics. Here we go.
So I'm passing around the VSBA model code of ethics, and it's been a few years since we've been in person for this meeting to actually go through it. This has been modified slightly by VSBA, so we'd like you to look through it and see if there's any discussion or questions from the board in terms of the code, and if not, I'd ask that you adopt it and sign the code of ethics as board members.
Good. So if you have no questions or comments, I would entertain a motion to adopt.
Make a motion.
Okay, Sarah makes the motion to adopt the code of ethics. Having no more discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So moved, and I'm an aye. Okay. Identify communication. Okay, that I didn't even have to dig. Identify communication practices. Are you asking if there's any changes from what we currently do?
Right.
I don't think there's any. We use social media, we use newspaper for warnings. We use the website. Any others?
In terms of, I think communication, when you're approached by the media, it generally comes through the superintendent or board chair, generally.
Okay, yeah. So when approached, goes to board chair or superintendent. Okay. I don't think that should change. Do you need a motion on that?
No.
Okay. Board development, discuss board development opportunities and attendance.
I think I'll just be brief on this, and I know for Sarah and Moore and Polly, they've heard this before. For Devin and Shaylee, I think it's important to know that the Vermont School Boards Association is your member organization at the state level. They're very strong. They provide really solid resources and professional learning for school board members. You'll get regular communication in your inbox. I made sure that they have your new FNESU email address, and Devin and Shaylee, I'll check in with you after, so we can just make sure that you can get logged into your new email addresses. So read the information that's coming to you. They'll give you information about legislative alerts, important education-related topics that are gaining momentum in the legislature. And they will also give you webinar opportunities. There'll be a fall conference that you'll be invited to, and other training opportunities around the state. So you should all know that that's out there, and you do have within the budget some money for board training. So if you want to participate in those, you won't have to pay personally to attend. We can fund that through the board budget.
I remember they came and did a board training. That was
Yes.
super helpful.
Yes,
That might not be
When we
horrible to do
merged.
again.
yes.
Yeah. Discuss, let's see.
I think that
Attendance, did you need to talk about that? No? What,
the what?
the attendance? It said, opportunities and attendance towards those opportunities, is that what that means?
Oh, attendance at those opportunities.
At those
yes.
opportunities, okay.
So the one thing I will say, Polly, in statute, there is an 8-hour obligation for you and I to do professional learning together over the course of the school year.
Okay.
So we'll just want to make sure that we're participating in those, the board chair superintendent, and taking care of that board chair superintendent responsibility in statute.
Wait, just out of curiosity, does statute say we do that together, or just,
Yeah.
I have 8 hours and you have
No,
8 hours?
we do it
to
together.
get there?
Yes.
Oh.
Good thing we like
Forced
each other.
marriage. Forced marriage, okay.
There's generally a VSA, VSBA fall conference
Right.
and taken care of in that fall conference. This last year, they didn't have
Yeah.
the fall conference, so Kevin and I did 4 2-hour webinars together. It was Kevin, Mary, and I over the first year.
Gotcha. Discuss local and statewide education advocacy responsibilities.
So that you'll get information from VSBA about that. So as things are coming up in terms of bills coming up in the legislature, you will get feedback and a call to action from the VSBA sometimes during that process. So it is an important role that you're all serving, and you read about it in the Code of Ethics, your responsibility to serve all students fairly and ethically, and just know that that's a part of the role that you'll be hearing about that from the VSBA.
Designate newspaper for notification of meetings. What have we used in the past, messengers? No.
So we haven't had a designated
Newspaper, because we
We're
use
just
our
chosen
webpage.
not to.
Fine with that. How about you? Yeah. But we do post all our meetings on the website.
Yes.
Essential work for Essential Vermont School Board video.
So I did not have that drawn up. If you wanna watch that, we could, or I can email it to you and ask you to watch it on your own.
We could do that.
Okay, we can do that. I will email that to you.
And you're saying it's 5 minutes,
It's 5 minutes.
not
Yes,
5 hours.
not 5 hours. It's 5 minutes. And just so, so you know, there's a toolkit from Vsba that I'll be sending to Polly now that I know that she's the chair. And there's an essential toolkit for the school board in general. Both Shaylee and Devin, in your new emails, there is a new member toolkit from the Vermont School Boards Association that I've sent you the link to. So there's some helpful videos and resources there for you to take a look at. I think that's it for your
Okay.
reorganization.
I just have one thing to add to your list. And this is gonna be new for Devin and Shaylee, but when we talk about warrants on the board, it's a stack of bills to pay, and we prepare them at central office, and then the board approves them and the checks go out. Our current practice is to scan and email those to the full board, and then we send the checks out once we've had 2 board members email back and say they approve them. And so as part of reorganization, we like to have a motion in the minutes that says the board is making an authorization to approve those warrants electronically.
Yeah, because otherwise we would have to go to central office to sign them.
Right.
Exactly, yeah, definitely. I move to continue to send this warrants electronically. So, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? And I'm an aye as well. You forgetting to do that. Okay, anything else? Alright. Okay, so you've already called the meeting to order. We've already done board reorganization and consent agenda. There is one policy. It's the substitute teacher policy. It's the first reading, and so Devin and Shaylee, typically policies come before us twice. The first time, then we contribute any changes or comments we have when we read them. And then if there are changes, it goes back to the policy committee. They talk about those changes and it comes back to us a second time. So this, it says first reading, so it's just your first draft, basically. So, I don't know if anybody has any questions or comments about that policy that was included. And if there are none, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, so there's a motion to approve the first reading. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? And I'm an aye, so moved. So next we have agenda prioritization. Do you need to change anything around?
I don't need to change anything. I do have something under student now,
Okay, under your,
but no change in
but
order.
no change in order, okay. So next we have recognition of public, of visitors. Is there anybody in the Zoom room that would like to contribute a public comment? Once, twice. Okay, so we'll continue. So next we have our school spotlight, which is Rachel Reynolds.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, I'm virtual today. Daycare pickup was not in the cards to work out just right. So I'll see you guys in real life next month. So for my school spotlight, so for the new board members I haven't met, I'm Rachel Reynolds. I'm the middle school principal in Enosburg, and we decided for our middle school students around February that we were going to put on our own version of the Winter Olympics. We had done this a few years ago, well, the last 4 years ago, the last time the Winter Olympics came around, and we found it to be a really, it was kind of an interdisciplinary learning unit, as well as a way for our students in our school community to build connection with one another. So it was kind of set up as a series of challenges, but also a way for kids to learn about other cultures and countries, the history of the Olympics, and kind of try to figure out if like what the real purpose of the Olympics is. Is it about sports or is it about something more? So what I'll do is I'll really briefly share like kind of the introduction slideshow we did to roll this out to kids, and then a few of the pictures from our events. They were planned to be the Friday before February break, but then we had a snow day, so we rescheduled them for last Friday. And I don't have as many pictures as I was hoping because I was kind of running around the school, like taking pictures, and we had lots of events going on at once. But I will, if I have, do I have permission to share my screen?
Yes.
Cool. Okay. So you guys all the way, can you all see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Cool. Okay. So trying to get this box out of the way. Okay. So we rolled it out with kids. We showed this video that I'm not going to play, but it's just kind of a hype video for the Olympics, which got the kids like really excited. And then we told them that it would be our version of all of these Olympic winter events. So let me try to skip through this. So this was actually from the last time we did it, and there are a couple of board members not here tonight, but they probably would recognize their children in this crowd when they were 7th or 8th graders and won some medals a few years ago. So the school-wide question, kind of our essential question, was, are the Olympics about more than sports? And so we posed that to students. And then we put a series of both academic, physical, and kind of STEM or technology related challenges, and each TA homeroom could nominate, or kids could sign up for participation in each event if they wanted to. And in that way, by having like 7 or 8 different events, every kid in the school had ownership of some part of the Olympics. So that was a really special way to do it. We randomly assigned countries, so they picked a flag. And then we did a few different events. So we did a door decorating contest. So each, like I said, each homeroom was assigned a country, and then they had to decorate the door to represent the door of their classroom to represent that country. And they had to teach us about the geography, the climate, the culture, the primary language they speak, what we would do if we were visiting, like if we were a tourist in this country, where would we go? What would we see? What would we eat? And then they also had to teach us about the Olympics in general and the history of the country in their Olympics. So that was the door decorating contest. Then we also did a school-wide vocabulary jam. So this was a list of 100 essential words every middle school student should know. And they TAs picked representatives and they practiced with the list for several weeks. I get to study and practice with the words. And then it's this kind of, a vocabulary jam is this virtual contest where they kind of with their team, they try to get the correct answers to the words being used in context and sentences, or figuring out the definition or the closest synonym or the closest antonym sometimes. So it's a lot of context and application. And so we did that as a challenge. This was a STEM challenge. They had to build an Olympic podium. This was probably the biggest hit. We did ice dancing, which was, I picked songs from my time when I was in middle school, and which was quite some time ago, well, more than 20 years now. And so I got to randomly assign them a song. So they might have gotten My Heart Will Go On by Celine Dion, and then they would have to choreograph a dance to that song, which they did in their socks and had to slide around a little bit. And it was amazing and so much fun. So we did ice dancing. We did a version of curling where they had to roll a ball towards a target while a partner swept stuff out of the way so that they didn't run into it. We did, well, this actually ended up being changed, but this was an outdoor event where we pulled kids on sleds through a course, and a scavenger hunt in the snow, a skiing relay race, which we did in the hallway. Each section was represented a different type of skiing. So they could like hop through hoops or maneuver through obstacles with skis that we made ourselves. So that was really fun. They signed up for their events, and then it was just like this really amazing community building activity where all day long they were participating in events, they were demonstrating their learning, and they were sharing, like cheering each other on in the different countries. So I have some pictures from that day. So a couple of these are like the podium ceremonies. Because we did it a Friday later than we had planned, the mask mandate had gone away. So you actually see some smiling faces in these pictures. This was one of the doors. I chose to share this picture because this country, this TA randomly picked Russia, and their selection happened at the end of January, actually, and well before kind of all of the conflicts occurred, which kind of brewed up over our vacation. And so the TA, when they returned from break, decided that they wanted to disqualify themselves as Russia and instead represent Ukraine. They had already done all this hard work to decorate their door. So instead, they decided to use the door as a way to teach about the conflict that's occurring in Ukraine right now. So it became a learning opportunity for them to share with the school why the change and what is happening in that region right now. So that was that was a decision the students made themselves, and it was really powerful one. So just a few more pictures. This was another of the doors. You can see some of the other podiums. This was the curling in that bottom corner. And then they also shared what they felt like they learned about the Olympics, which was the Olympics bring peaceful, try to contribute to building a more peaceful and better world. They share that they think the Olympics, a goal is to reunite countries because everybody is supporting and rooting for the same people or a similar cause, or to make, some of them decided it's to make sports more accessible for female athletes. And that the Olympic rings symbolize people coming together. So they decided that the Olympics are indeed about more than sports. They're also about people coming together, and we felt that as a school. So it was a learning opportunity as well as a community building event. So I think this is it for pictures. A couple more of our podium ceremonies. This was the vocab jam with the kids engaging in the competition, and what you can't see is the screen projected with the live answers being put up, and they were all really excited about this. And this over here in the corner was 3 8th grade boys doing their ice dance. They were very excited, and there was a lot of complex choreography that went into it. So so yeah, that is my little spiel. I tried to keep it fast. I hope I wasn't talking too quickly, but I'd be happy to answer any questions about what we did if anyone has questions.
I don't have any questions, but that looks a lot of fun. I know my daughter was, I think it was the Friday, you had the snow day.
Yeah.
And was it a snow day? Yeah, it was a snow day. Yeah. And she was actually bummed about the snow day because it was closing ceremony.
Yes, yeah, I had a lot of kids emailing me that day asking if they would still get an Olympics. So I ended up having to make a Facebook post on our school page to reassure them that it was actually it would happen. It would just be rescheduled. And I would also say, Polly, that I have never had such a forceful demand from an ice dancing competitor that they must have a microphone on so that they can rap during their dance, and that was your daughter, just saying. And it was amazing. So
Goodbye, college. All right.
Rachel, I love how you wove in not only the fun events like the ice dancing and the choreography and things like that, but also some of the academic competitions in there and kind of connected them to the Olympics. For me, that was really interesting to see.
Yeah, we wanted to make it we wanted to include a lot of the things we were already doing and learning about. They already learn about geography and world history and other cultures. So this was a way to access some of those concepts. And the STEM challenge was a way to kind of get after some of those skills, and the vocabulary is an important skill for everybody. So, and we also, it was important to us not just to have a whole bunch of physical challenges, because that's not every kid's interest area and strength. We have a lot of kids who have a lot of strengths and interests in other ways, and so we wanted to give so that everybody would look at that list of kind of events they could sign up for and find something that appealed to them. And so we were really happy that I think, let's see, I have to look again at the list, but I remember we had a couple absences that every single kid in the middle school signed up for something, which was really cool. And then some people ended up being sick, but initially everybody was representing their country in their homeroom in some way, which was important to us too.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, that's great.
Thank you.
Okay, so that brings us to Morgan.
I sent your February financial update out. I'll just talk briefly about it right now. We just sent out this week second semester tuition bills, and I think we're probably about $100,000 higher than we had budgeted for. So
Wow, that's good news.
good news this year, much better than where we were at this point last year. So that's good news for us. You know, broadly looking at salaries spent to date and what we know we're going to spend and benefits, I feel pretty confident that we're going to be under in those big categories. It's going to be relatively close, but I don't see any storm clouds on the horizon. And so as we get into the meeting later, Vern is going to talk about some of the capital type projects that he sees need to get done at all 5 of your schools. And we'll talk a little bit about where we think the general fund could maybe absorb those versus the capital reserve fund. But you know, I don't think we're going to be rolling in money at the end of the year, but we're in a much better place than we were last year. I don't know if there are any specific questions you want to go through. I still don't have a draft of the FY21 audit. I'm told it's coming any day now. And I don't expect any surprises when we do get it, but as soon as we can turn that around, we'll get it out to you. And hopefully in April, we'll be able to approve that. As you know, the budget passed. I think it's a big enough margin that we shouldn't worry about a reconsideration vote. Unless somebody's doing something else in the community. The SU board discussed the transportation study at their February meeting. I had put it on the agenda in case we needed to take any action. They directed us to roll over the contract with Terracel with basically the same level of services. And then a smaller group of us will look at some of the recommendations that the consultant made, start working with some of your building leaders and decide if next year we want to bid out a bigger transportation contract to expand some of those services. So that's future things to come, but nothing that we need tonight.
Okay.
One thing that I will need some direction on tonight is that you have a parent who hasn't made a formal request but is exploring looking to pay tuition on their own for their student to attend Enosburg Middle School. Eventually they would try to attend Enosburg High School through the school choice, but they're in a town that doesn't tuition kids. I put this out to business managers across the state and everybody handles it differently. Some flatly refuse to take tuition kids unless they're coming from another district. Some will allow their staff to do it. Those that do allow it seem not to really have a lot written down in policy on how to handle it. There are a few issues with it. The first one is that when you accept kids from Northern Mountain Valley or another tuition district, if your tuition rate ends up being a lot higher than the one that you announced, you have a mechanism for going back and getting that additional money.
Right.
Or paying them if you charge too much. There really isn't one with parent paid tuition, and some of the districts that do accept parent paid kids, basically say they don't even try to collect that.
Right.
Depending on the payment schedule, boards have been put in the situation where it's April, the last year the kid would be eligible to be in that school, and the parents are just not cutting a check, and whether they kick the kid out at that point, or take them to small claims court, and the answer is no to both of those. But,
Oh,
you know,
interesting.
that is a concern. Some will require payment
Before.
for the semester entirely.
Yeah.
And then finally, if you have a tuition kid from someone outside of our supervisory union from a tuition in town, and that kid has high special ed costs, we would bill those costs out to the district that the kid is that's sending you the kid. In this case, there's no district sending you the kid, so I suppose you could send a bill to the parents, but if I were the parent, I wouldn't pay, and there would be no real mechanism for you to collect.
Right.
So those are the concerns around that. Obviously, there is some benefit in that you have revenue coming in for a kid who's likely going to be here, in this case, starting in 9th grade.
But then the downside is we have a precedent without a policy.
Right.
Which I don't even know how a policy would even circumvent the special ed conversation. You can't.
Well, I feel like you would have to create your policy absent that,
Right.
because you couldn't drive your decision based
Right.
on that, it would
No,
be
exactly.
discriminatory, so. I
Exactly.
think that, you either establish that you're going, in what I'm saying about this situation with this private pay.
Right.
Either establish whether you're accepted or you won't.
Right,
Yeah.
and then I think what Morgan found in talking to the other districts is it is problematic to get payment sometimes, and it puts you in the bill collector
Right.
situation where right now you're getting payment from districts, not from individuals.
And we don't have a mechanism that says, okay, if you're gonna send your kid for next year, payment will be in August. Like we don't have for the upcoming year, we don't have a policy that does that.
You have nothing in policy right now,
Yeah.
so you could accept this, and we could move forward without a policy, which I hope that you don't do, but then I would just make stuff up and tell the parent this is how we do it here. And then we'd see where that went.
Or we get
if
some
it's-
help drafting a policy.
If it's something that you're interested in going, we could bring a policy to the policy committee.
I feel like we need a policy. I think it's a can of worms if we just say, sure.
But they got policy change so much yet. Just
Right. It would be different for, right? What do you think? Having some kind of guidelines
Yes.
in place? Yeah. Yes.
So what I'm sensing is that you're okay with it conceptually, but you wanna have a policy before you.
Conceptually,
I just wanna be able to tell the parent
What do you
that
think
that's the direction that
conceptually?
we're going.
my vision is that we have programming that's so dynamic that people are knocking down our doors to have it. So conceptually, I like that idea, but am I missing something? I mean, other than you're requiring kids who might be more expensive.
If you accept one, you're gonna accept all within those parameters
Right,
that you have.
exactly.
So you need to have that pretty well defined in policy, and you would wanna see what kind of guardrails you can put up. Would you disallow a kid that was kicked out of another school?
Ooh,
I don't know if you can or not,
right.
but that might be one thing.
You could consider good standing language. in
Well, that's what I was
policy as well.
thinking, I mean, does any, yes,
But whatever guardrails you put,
yeah,
anybody who's coming down that
Right.
chute is gonna come in. It's similar to the high school choice
right.
conversations.
What do you think? So conceptually, are you okay with tuition? No, I'm not, nothing's jumping out at me.
So sort of pump that to policy committee and get a draft. And then as
So
soon as
just to
possible.
be clear, we haven't approved anything, we just approved
No,
the
just
development of a model
Have
policy.
to like
Okay.
check it out, exactly.
And then I brought to you in the fall the draft successor SRO contract for the two high schools. We did that before budget development, and you wanted me to bring that back once we kind of went through the development process. So now that you have an approved budget, if you're still supportive of that, I think you would want a motion to authorize the board chair to negotiate and sign a successor SRO contract for Franklin County Sheriff's Office. And they've shared language with us in the fall, and it was basically the same.
The same.
I did run it by Beth and Joseph at that time, and there were no concerns.
Yeah, if you have any conversation or discussion,
I'm good.
okay, then I would entertain a motion.
Yeah.
Okay, Sarah made a motion to allow the board chair to negotiate and sign away from the table on the SRO contract. Having no more discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
And that's all I have. When Vern is up, I will probably jump in with some motions around the capital reserve fund.
Okay.
That's the direction you guys go there.
Okay. So next we have Lynn.
So speaking of Vern, Vern is here for the first time tonight. I should have started with an introduction at the top of the meeting.
I know we haven't even done, I guess we
Oh,
should have done
yeah,
an
we should have.
introduction
Yes.
with everyone. Yeah,
Should have started with that.
yes, we should have. Okay.
So we'll go to Vern in a little bit. Do we want to do introductions with everyone? Like,
Yeah,
let's stop
maybe.
at this point.
Yeah,
Poor
let's do
Shaylee
that.
and Devin are here, probably wondering
Yeah.
who are these people without their little boxes, no names are under them.
Yeah.
It would be if we were all virtual.
Exactly.
So I'm Lynn Coda, I'm the superintendent for Franklin Northeast.
Morgan Dale, business matter.
Sarah Verdees,
Morgan, another board member.
Holly Rico, board member.
Jen Hubbard, principal of Enosburg Elementary School.
I'm Beth O'Brien, principal of Richford Senior High School. I just want you to know I'm not making.
I know.
I keep expecting Vern to hop up with a screwdriver.
I'm not doing that much.
Or ticket, I'm not quite sure.
Hi, I'm Joseph Donner, I'm principal at Enosburg Falls High School.
I'm Vern Boomholder, I'm the director of facilities.
Nate DeMar, director of Call at the Career Center.
I'm Amanda Blaney. I take the notes from meetings.
We've got Rachel.
Hi, I'm Rachel Reynolds, middle school principal in Enosburg.
Gab?
Hi, I'm Gabrielle Lumbra. I'm the the Flexible Pathways Academy principal, and not kind of on this board, but I show up a lot. So I'm Franklin Northeast.
Devin.
Oh,
Muted
muted.
Devin.
I said I'm Devin Lumbra and I'm just me.
Nice to meet
Welcome,
you.
Devin. And then you'll see this lady behind the camera from time to time at our meetings. You want to introduce yourself?
I'm Courtney Fletcher. I'm Lynn Coda's administrative assistant. Holy cow.
It might have been too close.
And you'll get emails from me quite often.
Okay, back to your agenda.
Yes, my apologies, I should have started with that. So I'll move into personnel, and under personnel, there are no changes. Well, you do have one, so I'll have you speak to that in just a second. So we have, under hiring, we have a health teacher for Enosburg High School, Lori Olio, for next year, and a teacher for Richford High School. Do you wanna say that?
Caitlin Long will be our new music teacher next year.
Do you know how she spells Caitlin?
Caitlin.
There are a few different ways to
Yes,
spell
there
that
are.
name. Okay, so we look for a motion from the board to hire both Caitlin and Lori to fill those positions.
I'll make a motion. We have a motion, Sarah, and then all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay, so moved.
In terms of resignations, these are informational, we don't need to move on these. Shirley Luna, school nurse, is not gonna be returning at Enosburg Elementary School. Anthony Sorrentino, athletic director for Enosburg High School, will not be returning next year either. So we'll start the hiring process for both of those positions. There are some others, and we'll be just keeping those updated. At this point in the year, we don't need to have you move. These are people that are just notifying us that they're not signing their contract because they've already accepted other positions. So you'll start seeing more show up on that. I would say that'll be a very long section during the next meeting because we're right in the kind of midst of the beginning of the hiring season process. So you have no additional retirement notifications, several open positions across the organization. At Cold Hollow Career Center, there's an opening for human services, I would say education, human services,
Teacher prep program.
teacher prep program, which we're very excited about. So if anybody's watching out there and wondering how you enter the field in CTE, in the CTE world, we're looking for people with experience in public education teaching, could be elementary, could be high school, could be middle school level, or it could be people in the human services field as well. Anything you want to add to that, Nate?
No, ideally, the ideal candidate will be able to teach college level courses for CCV and the curriculum of the national curriculum Ed Rising. So it's not starting the program from ground up. There will be some curriculum available. So
Great.
The open positions, I noticed like over the month, some of those have changed. Is it just determining like, well, you don't need that that position anymore, or?
So some have been filled and then others have left. So these are new openings for the open positions.
Oh, the open positions?
Yes.
Oh. Cause some.
You have one in particular?
No, I don't, let's see, there's one, well, I can't remember. I just remember going like, oh, that one disappeared, I'd have to look back. I remember going, oh, that disappeared, but we didn't hire one,
Oh.
do they not need it?
Help, maybe.
I can't remember.
It might have been help. And I think they were set for the remainder of
Or
the
there
year.
was like a couple with like behavior techs that aren't there, but they haven't been hired. So then I was like confused how they came off the list.
So I think sometimes with those positions, the behavior tech and the paraeducators are really fluid.
Okay,
So sometimes they're hired, or sometimes you might have a student that moves out. And if a
Oh,
student moves
right.
out, you take somebody that was already in a position and you
Gotcha.
shuffle them over.
okay.
So I feel like of all the positions as leaders, those are the ones that have the most movement over
Okay.
the course of the year.
Gotcha.
So you can see the remaining positions that are on there. Enosburg Elementary School knows that they have a paraeducator, behavior technician, bus monitor, and a long-term kindergarten substitute teacher right now. And then for next year, they have a math interventionist, a school nurse, and an anticipated elementary classroom teacher. At Enosburg High School, they have a paraeducator, athletic trainer, part-time PE teacher, and an athletic director. At Richford Elementary School, they have a certified tutor, teacher interventionist, and para. At Richford High School, they have a behavior technician, a music teacher, no, not a music teacher anymore, and a high school science teacher. So those are the open positions that we know about. And again, that will be longer probably next time.
Okay.
We do have a request under student, and we have, I'm gonna speak generally about this, and if I need to go any further, we may be able to just do it right in open session, but if there's anything specific that we need to go deeper on, I'll ask you to move to executive. We have a request from Richford Junior Senior High School. We have an 8th grader who has been enrolled in the virtual academy with Gab, and the family has moved out of the Enosburg-Richford district. So the request is, can that student who is now living in a place that does not offer a virtual learning academy complete the year in our virtual learning academy and then begin fresh in their new community for the following year? So they don't have to have one more transition this year as an 8th grader before they start high school next year. So that's the request before you.
So I feel like we've made this decision before, but it's been in person. And I don't really see the difference between in person and virtual. Like if it's in the past, parents have like went from like Enosburg to Richford and they want to stay the year in Enosburg before they start in Richford. And we've granted that in the past.
Usually you granted it like later in the year where they've been able, like they've moved and they've been able to finish.
I mean, it's March.
Right.
Yeah. It's later than we.
No.
Oh.
I mean, not for a whole year. Like,
Oh,
you
not
get
a
to
whole,
this point
yeah,
in the
sorry.
year, yeah.
Like, how much later?
No.
Yes,
In the
it's
spring.
always like a little bit of the end. It's not like they're coming in October and asking, right? Yeah, it's a little.
So what does the board think?
I'm good with it.
I'm okay with it. Thinking about an eighth grade kid transitioning that, right? Eighth grade transitioning.
Anything you want to
Starting
add, Justin?
Yeah.
I just think it's in the best interest of the student, because there's extenuating circumstances that we can't get into an open session.
Right. But I feel like any kid who would have to start a new school year in March would not be in the best interest of the kid.
Well, it would be a double transition because
Yeah.
it would be shifting from virtual to in person and then shifting to a new school.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Oh, yeah. Gab, do you have anything that you want to weigh in before we make?
No, I agree with Beth. It's the best situation for this student.
Okay. So I'd entertain a motion to allow that student to stay in the virtual academy for the rest of the school year.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, Mort makes the motion. Having no more discussion, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? So moved.
Thank you. I do have, I'm gonna give you a short legislative update and I will keep it short because I encourage you to read your Vsba updates because it's pretty covered in there. There are just a few bills to pay attention to right now. One of the things that you're hearing from VSA, Vsba, and the VPA in terms of things to pay attention to are some broad changes to the discrimination bill, and it would put schools, by adding language to the current harassment definition, it would put schools in a situation where they would be on the hook for more investigations and situations that were unconnected to school that were happening out in the community. So there's pretty significant concern about what that would add in addition to the existing hazing, harassment, and bullying policies and our Title IX procedures and practices that are in place. I say that not because I take harassment lightly at all, because I don't. I'm just talking in terms of the school's ability to manage and investigate a process that is a little troubling, that could potentially be adding on. So watching that bill, I won't go into depth about pupil weights. That's still something that's in the legislative session and is active. We're waiting to see. I don't know if you heard, did anything move today? You were listening.
It was in Senate Finance, and it seems to just be languishing there, but they're still talking about it needing to move this year.
Okay.
Another one is around 173, so there are connections there. It's looking like that one is probably going to move next year instead of this year, is what it's looking like at this point, unless you've heard anything that I haven't since the last time I looked. So we're watching that, and then the other thing just to note is language around in the Title 16, Chapter 11 section of Vermont education law is about withdrawal from unified union school districts. And there's a proposal for language about how communities could withdraw that has a very low bar compared to the amount of work that went into mergers. And it would create a lot of burden on districts without requiring a very high bar for calling it to question within a community. So that's something we're also keeping our eye on, and I would encourage you to do the same. So there are other things happening in legislative session. We definitely entered this legislative session collectively across our three organizations asking for legislators to really consider not moving anything new onto the plates of educators, and that really hasn't been how the legislative session it's not how it's being played out right now. So there are still a lot of new things under consideration that will have the potential of putting even more pressure on an already overburdened system. So we have concerns about what we're seeing that's starting to gain momentum through the legislative process. Any questions on anything around legislative updates?
Nope.
I put this on COVID response shift. So you've seen over the course of the last week or so how this has played out across the state. So we made a decision at the SU board meeting on the 28th, I believe, to move forward with removing masks, making masks optional in our schools across FMESU. So that went live on March 1st, last Wednesday, when students came back to class. There were about 5 other systems around the state who made a similar decision. That decision, I would say, there were people that were excited about the decision, and there are also people that were anxious about the decision. We were really clear with our stakeholders that this is by choice. So the idea of there are people, for whatever reason, that will want to continue to wear masks, and they can absolutely do so. And we will make sure that they feel safe in their buildings and that they don't feel judged or criticized for making that choice. So I've checked in with building leaders, most building leaders across the organization, and what I've heard reports back on is that there are some teachers and there are some students who have chosen to remain masked, which is totally fine. And there are other people that have been happy to let the masks go. What I've also heard is the difference that this has made in terms of culture and climate in the buildings, and how happy kids have been, how happy teachers have been to be able to see faces and connect with students differently. It's been 3 years now, 3 school years. I know it's 2 calendar years, but it's impacted 3 school years. So it feels like it's been a tremendously long road. So to have this opportunity at this point in the year to feel this sense of hope that we're able now to shift into a period of time where we maybe can move out of the rapid decision making that has come around responding to the pandemic, and then having to navigate really varying opinions about how to navigate a pandemic within our communities, to a time period where we really can shift to an endemic response and start to understand and start to plan for how we're going to live with the reality that COVID is going to remain for some time, and how are we going to navigate teaching and living and learning with COVID present. So it's pretty great from my perspective to see us move in this direction, to see some time and space open up for us to really be spending our time and resources on different things. And I probably couldn't name an educator or a leader anywhere in the system that isn't happy to have to stop asking people to pull their masks up. So we, after we made that decision last week, the governor announced that effective, probably gonna get the date wrong, I think it's March 14th, that masks will be optional for all schools. Obviously, he's been clear that districts could choose to do their own thing. More districts, since that announcement, have chosen to go mask optional, and we're seeing that trend across the state. We do know that we're gonna have to catch up in a place where what the SU board voted was to continue to have me follow. There was a disconnect because there was guidance that came out of CDC, and it was competing with guidance from the AOE and VBH. And when we looked back at the pandemic decision-making authority that the board gave me, it was to follow VBH and AOE guidance, and CDC was not named. So in their motion, they still wanted to follow AOE and VBH guidance, because that's what we've done throughout the pandemic, absent the requirement for masks at that time. So we know that there are gonna be modifications that we need to put into place in terms of, any changes to quarantine periods, or if there are windows where kids it's recommended that they wear their masks for a period of time after they've had an exposure. So we'll work through anything that comes like that. We'll communicate about it. But at this time, I just think I can speak for everybody that it really feels pretty great to be in a different place.
Yeah.
Anything anyone wants to add? Any questions?
Okay.
In terms of negotiations, we're heading into round 2 of teacher negotiations tomorrow evening. We've got Sarah and Rick, who are on the negotiations council for the ER board. We aren't really going to talk much about details of the negotiation session, certainly in open meeting, but we're hopeful. I think that there's a recognition on behalf of the board that, we want to be able to attract and we want to be able to retain teachers throughout the system. So that's certainly a goal in terms of this negotiation cycle. Is there anything, Morgan or Sarah, that you want to add? Okay. And I did not queue this up. Let me see if I can find it really quickly. At the SU meeting, the board adopted mission, vision, and goals for the organization. So I will just go over with you what those are. So the vision that was adopted by the SU board is that in FNESU we're working collaboratively with staff and students and the community to achieve an equitable, responsive, learning environment which prepares all students for lifelong success. FNESU is committed to being a community where students want to learn, families want to live, and educators and staff want to teach and work. So that's the vision. The mission, the schools in the Franklin Northeast Supervisory Union provide equitable, inclusive, and personalized learning opportunities for all students. Student wellness and achievement is our collective priority and responsibility. And then finally, the SU board developed 3 SMART goals for the organization. These are long-term SMART goals that we'll all be working towards. The first is by June of 2027, all students in FNESU will be reading on grade level by the end of 3rd grade. So that's a big goal. It's a big aspirational goal. When we say all, this is important to the SU board. That all means all. So our systems need to be working hard for all students in all of our schools. The second goal is by June of 2027, all students in FNESU will complete high school by demonstrating proficiency in graduation requirements as reflected in their personalized learning plan. So we've been working towards our portrait of a graduate. We've been working towards that proficiency-based system and getting closer to the true definition of proficiency-based for a while now. So that was important that was one of the goals. The third goal is by June of 2027, all students in FNESU will demonstrate proficiency by the end of each grade level band on the social emotional learning priority standards. So the way those priority standards will be developed will be in a band, I believe it's going to be pre-K through 2, 3 through 5, 6 through 8, 9 through 12. So kids will be working on demonstrating proficiency in those priority standards over the course of that grade band. So where we are now is at the next meeting I have to have a draft reporting plan for the board. So I'll have progress monitoring reports that I'll be responsible for giving the board each year at different times. So that's under development right now. So that's our update from this. This is work that the probably in more you'll be able to answer this. It's been a while. We've been working towards the mission, vision, and goals for a while, and we've had starts and stops with COVID, and we finally have pushed through and feel like we're in a good place with that. So it's adopted, and that will be something that's really driving the work of the organization. I have nothing else at this time.
Okay. So principal's report, Kelly's not here.
Kelly was not able to make it tonight.
Okay. So, Beth, do you have anything to add?
No, everything's in
Everything information? Jen, how about you?
All informational.
Great. Rachel, do you have anything to add?
All informational.
Okay. And Joseph, anything to add? Oh,
Yes. Correspondence, a request for the board.
Okay. Oh,
This is good stuff.
it is good stuff. It is after two, okay, I'm gonna read it out loud. It says, after a 2-year break, Enosburg Falls Lions Club will be presenting the 66th Vermont Dairy Festival on June 2nd through June 5th. We asked the school board directors to grant permission to the Dairy Festival to use high school, north lawn, and western parking lot, the same areas we've used in the past, as a display area and midway. We would only need use of the north lawn Thursday, June 2nd till the 5th. The parking lot we would need from Monday the 30th till June 5th. So Miller Amusements would have time to set up the midway. All certificates of insurance will be provided. If any of the directors have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me. Or if you prefer, myself or other key members of the Vermont Dairy Festival Committee could meet with you or attend a meeting. Yeah. So what are your thoughts about allowing,
I'm good with it.
what's that?
I'm good with it.
You're good with it? Yep. I mean, that would be the end of us if we said no. Got nothing on that.
Can somebody just remind those people when they come to set up like the tilt-a-whirl thing that literally goes directly outside of the 6th grade classroom window, that they cannot be smoking cigarettes while they assemble it, because that has been a problem in the past.
We could send that message back, Rachel, and I think it might not be a bad thing to talk with facilities staff about signage.
Yeah, and I believe I even have the letter, the email that we sent the last time, which we specified exactly that. Please make sure there's no smoking on grounds and that there is an education facility right next door.
Did you write that letter last time?
I did.
Are you willing to write that this time?
Yeah.
Perfect.
So do we don't need a motion, do we? That's just,
It probably wouldn't hurt to have a
Okay.
motion on that.
I'll make a motion.
okay, Sarah makes the motion to allow, the Lions Club to use the school property during Dairy Day. All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
I just have to say, that is another sign of hope that we are in the place, you know, after these 3 years where we're gonna, I know it's gonna be chaos, Rachel, I know that, it's hard to be in those classrooms where, you know, they're watching people on the rides on that Friday. But it's exciting to see a return to some normal things.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, and Joseph, do you have anything else now?
No, that's fine, thank you.
Okay. Nate, how about you?
Yes, lots of stuff. First, I'm going to turn it over, I think, did we skip Vern, or does Vern have some stuff to talk about, or just me?
Bird's gonna have some stuff too.
Oh.
Why don't we start with
I'll
you
go first?
first?
Okay. First thing, I sent those survey results. I hope you had a chance to look at those because they were outstanding. So just want to make sure you haven't looked at them, look at them. I wanted to share with you the sugar house drawings. Our students started with these and I could get them attached. And Vern will talk more about where we are on the building project stuff.
Oh, okay.
So the students designed those with the help of forestry and then Black River Design. So after going back and forth, that's what they have come up with. The other thing that I need board approval on, and you don't have to trust me, you can look through the documents here, but we are going into the investment business, kind of. Seth Hungerford worked for Julie Lacrosse on a project down the street, and throughout the course of that, conversation was struck up with George Shaw in Oklahoma, a friend of his, and he actually passed away. And in his will, he wanted to leave money, he was from Enosburg, he wanted to leave money to benefit Cold Elephant Career Center construction technology program.
Oh, very nice.
And so, that is upwards of $50,000.
Wow.
So, for scholarships and to benefit students, whether it's tools or something, whatever they may need.
Yeah.
They didn't wanna just put it in a savings account, so I have been working with Vermont Community Foundation, and we are establishing a nonprofit reserve fund. I've received 2 checks, I've got $26,000 now, so I wanna get this put somewhere else, my office, and then the other 24,000 is forthcoming with some of the other donors, so.
Okay.
I need a resolution of the board to sign. I guess that you were gonna be the chair.
You guessed?
So,
You're a betting
and we are investing, there's a couple different funds, but, we're investing in the socially responsible fund.
man.
So there's a couple, I'll need a motion for you guys to sign.
Okay. These are different.
Well, they're different. So
Okay.
one's a resolution to establish and the other is is the nonprofit reserve agreement. So if you wanna take a few minutes, I'll look through that.
Okay.
I would need a motion and a signature.
So this one, let me just clarify, is to create the fund, the scholarship.
So the scholarship will be administered with a committee within Cold Hollow.
Right.
But that is that you guys are agreeing to put money in there.
In that fund.
And this is the agreement to have a non-profit reserve fund
Fund,
agreement.
which designated solely and inclusively to support the charitable purposes, programs, and operations of the
And
corporation.
the corporation is, you'll see in that one,
That.
to serve the Cold construction technology trade students at Cold Prison.
Okay.
Morgan's looked this over, so you can ask me if you have any other questions, but we decided to go with the socially responsible fund, not the,
Yeah.
And for those of you who have been following the discussions around a Richford resident who is looking to possibly contribute a significant amount of money to a scholarship program and also to try to pull those little tiny ones in together.
Okay, right.
That's where the conversation with the Vermont Community Foundation started. So
Yeah.
basically they would manage the money, they can invest it in a more aggressive way than you really can as a municipality. And then they will basically send out a certain amount each year that you, the board, with Nate's input would direct towards the students who are going to receive it.
there'll be a press release from the donors, about the donors soon. There's a 1% fee, and then if it goes below $25,000, it's a $250 fee per year.
Okay.
They give an allocation of a percentage, but then me and the board can ask for more. It's to not exceed $6,000 per year. Is the donor's wishes. So,
Okay.
and not to exceed $1,500 to anyone's student.
Okay.
So,
this is straight scholarship contributions.
well, each donor has a slightly different letter that they had wish. So some is for post-secondary education, others are for students that may be in need. So in this case, Julie Lacrosse, Doug is her son. He was given a tool when he left his construction trade with Andy Bollier, was given a toolbox of tools that to this day is still
Yeah.
useful to him. So
That's great.
so it could be something like that. A kid could apply or get nominated by the teacher, and we would purchase something that the student may need. So it could vary between need and school.
But not for the program, it's student driven.
It's right, gotcha. Okay.
When you make a motion, can I just be clear as to what
Yeah. So I would entertain a motion to approve the resolution and the resolution as well as the
establishment of the nonprofit
establishment
reserve
of
fund
the nonprofit reserve fund.
through the Vermont Community Foundation.
Yeah, Sarah, we need a motion, and all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed?
You have another board member.
It's Rick, our chair is here.
Sorry. Yeah, what else did I get involved with?
Try to write.
He did try, it was close, he did try. There.
And Sarah made the motion, sorry.
Correct, Sarah made it. Alright.
And that's, and I've got some stuff with Vern, but.
Were you done with what you handed them in terms of the,
If they approved it and signed it, then I can.
no, the first part, you handed them designs for
Yeah.
your sugar
Sugar,
house.
yep.
Is there anything more you wanna say about location, or is there an ask about that, or is Vern covered?
I think Vern's been covered, so as I said last meeting, Vern has been more than extremely helpful. And it's kind of set up steps, and there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of asking and waiting. And so we're waiting on civil engineer and surveying and things like that, but, Vern is getting that done, so I just want to, again, show my appreciation for his, helping out with this, so.
Seth's done a great job with that as well. So basically our next steps for that is going out and getting a survey and then reaching out to contractors to obviously dismantle the existing barn that's there and then site work, which would basically be tying in municipals. So we're not gonna go with just anybody, it's gonna have to be somebody that's, decent with tying in municipals. And we'll go out to bid with that. We've been, Coal Hollow was a bit of a challenge when we got there. Getting it up to ADA standards, we spent some money on door handles, elevator repair. Basically a long list of things in there, but we've Nate and I have spoken about it and how we wanna go about it. And so basically, we kind of want to get the meat and potatoes out of the way first, so they're in need of a new set of boilers. Digital controls, they're the old style pneumatics, which is the air, and just basically start there, and then kind of go through the process as far as, so we're not really hammering a major capital fund. And just proceeding that way, and I think this is the best way to go to begin with, to get the mechanics fixed, because basically as far as there's a lot of small things, but I think if we get the major out of the way, we're talking about moving some walls and changing some classrooms and things like that, but that's not going to be a huge monetary fund right up front. I think we can kind of piecemeal that. So I have gone out, I just finished the RFP, Morgan and Courtney proofed it, and we sent those out to 3 contractors. I'm gonna reach out to another 2 because I'm sure we're gonna have a hard time getting 3. The biggest challenge right now is getting the equipment, 22 to 28 weeks for a boiler. So it's everywhere, it's not just that, it's all the equipment. So that's gonna be our challenge, to get that moving and get it done in a timely fashion. So Morgan's been great about moving forward and trying to get us going. As far as the sugar house, I think they did a great job. I'm pretty excited about it. They really, I think they put a lot of effort into it, and I think they came up with a really nice plan. So that is obviously gotta be done by 2023. So we kind of got to move on that this year as well. So there's no lack of work with 9 schools, but this is one that I believe in. I mean, I'm a trades guy, and I think it's a fantastic way for these kids to go and not have to come out with $120,000 worth of debt when they get out of college. So kind of near and dear to my heart. So, but I think we're going at it. I think we're going at it the right way. Nate and I sat down and talked in length a couple days ago, and I think we've got a good plan. And if we keep going down this path, I think it'll be okay.
So remind me, I remember before you had asked about, how to pay for the sugar house.
So my ask then was, for use capital reserve funds for the site work, so the demolition of the barn and hooking into the municipalities, power, drainage, water and gas. With the idea that if we're gonna be carrying that up, that we could potentially have the future project of the construction building. So while they're in there with the equipment, tie into that. So I've been trying to get a price for that. That's part of the bid. So I'm trying to guess $120,000 or less, but I really have no idea. So that would be the ask for the board for the capital reserve. The other side of that would be a loan from the capital reserve fund to the forestry program to build the sugar house after the foundation has been laid, and that will be paid back over a 5 to 10 year with 5 to 10 year process with profits from sugar.
Okay, so I see, so the facilities report, right? Like you said, there's no loss for project. So how do we propose some of these other projects to get done were you talking the whole capital reserve?
No, I think I believe you have about 500,000.
Yeah.
I'm talking about a fifth of it.
Okay,
$100,000.
Oh.
That's a little more than that.
okay.
But about $100,000 to $150,000. I don't think it's going to be more than that. I'm hoping it's 100, but I think I'm optimistic.
You were being very optimistic.
For the site,
Considering
for
the
the
town's
site,
just gone through, what,
for the site
3
work.
years of
Of
salt
not
shed
the,
pits.
like I said, and then the building of the sugar house obviously is going to be done mostly by construction trades.
Right, true.
So it's material and things of that nature. Obviously there'll be some contracting with electrical and plumbing stuff that has to be done, but like I said, that would be form an agreement where we would pay that,
Right.
or we would pay that back.
Okay.
It's probably important to just remind people also that Nate has some other funding sources.
Right, that's
Through
right.
ESSER and other gear money.
Whereas the bill right now that is being testified to tomorrow, there might be 15 million to support community projects that will be applied for.
Right.
So there are other avenues where I'm looking, but this building project doesn't fall under,
Right.
it's a building project versus a outdoor classroom where I've spent a lot of my other COVID money.
And
we
you've got
haven't-
some time bound pieces that you have to spend that money by, and some of it is short, it's short turnaround, correct?
Right, so I've got, so until September, so if this was done by then, then I could potentially buy a steel building for the construction trades program to be put up. But that would, all the site work would have to be done, and that,
Right.
even that is potentially not allowed to use the funds, but I think it is. Still haven't got answers. The AOE is not overly quick on saying, spend this money this way.
Are you doing your site work for both places at the same time?
I would like to.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
So that's part of that 100 to 150, both sites, sugar
Yeah.
house and the, okay.
and, yeah,
Okay.
rather than get them in there again.
Right, and so I know like town municipalities, they can often use like in-kind services, is that something that you guys can do, like if you did as part of the site work or not?
I don't know. I can find out.
Yeah. And sometimes they say, no, it has to be completely done by the engineer.
Right.
Sometimes they're like, oh yeah, you can do part of the site work or not.
I don't know if this is a good place for me to jump in. I'm gonna anyway, so, as Nate mentioned, you as a unified district now have $500,000 in the capital reserve fund. That is really money that the voters have given you the authority to use as you guys see fit. And so as we are tapping into different projects and want to use that money, we're gonna come to you as a board and have you make a motion that that's allowable use of that. Which is a little bit different than how we ran it back in the day when we were all individual town districts. Vern did send you his long list of projects that are going on, and they're really a mix of some where we think there may be grant money coming down the road, some where we think they're small enough that we're just gonna work it into the regular general fund budget, and some where we think we're gonna at least ask for permission to tap the capital reserve funds. And so if you as the board say that you're gonna allow us to use capital reserve funds for project X this year, what we might do is run those expenses through the general fund until we think we're at the point where we can't put any more in, and then put the balance in capital reserve.
Gotcha.
Or we might use some capital reserve, and then as we start the next fiscal year, we might put those into the general fund, knowing that we can move them into capital reserve if we need to.
Yeah.
So we try to play with that in order to keep your
Okay.
capital reserve fund as full as possible.
Okay.
The other calculus for your district is that if you run a project out of the general fund at Richford Elementary School, that does not impact your high school tuition. If you run it out of the high school, your high school tuition goes up, and people who are sending you high school kids are now paying for part of that project. So there are gonna be decisions based on that as well. So that said, there are a couple of projects that, after talking with Vern, I think we would welcome you giving us authority to use the capital reserve fund towards. These are not necessarily related to Nate's bigger project. As Lynn pointed out, there's some other funding streams that we wanna make sure we bleed out first. I sent Nate a message late today. I think that the lack of information that you're getting from the AOE may force their hand if you do it through that application link that I sent. So we may have more information by your next meeting. But the two big ones that Vern and I see, and Vern, if I'm misrepresenting, please jump in, are the boiler replacement project at Wallow that you mentioned, as well as parking lots, back parking lot and sidewalks at Richford Elementary. And notably absent from this list, as I'm sure you know, Polly, is the
Yes, the pond in the back of
Enosburg Elementary School. So we are going through this process with Green Print, which is an agency that the state has hired to deal with public sites that have more than 3 acres of impervious
Right, so this was the
surface
grant.
and are maybe not in compliance with the current regs.
Okay.
So what Vern and I heard recently is that the design process is gonna be fully paid for by the state through this grant. So we're going through that process now, and it's not a timeline that either of us like, but we're hoping that we can speed it a little bit.
Right.
It's kind of the early, they're really not, every meeting's kind of piecemealing information, they're not forthcoming with what, but for us not to go through it, it would be crazy for free
No.
money.
The grant process.
So there's a
is okay.
mythical round 2 that's coming, and
Yeah.
the state hasn't finalized the details on that. But that would actually pay for the work to be done.
Right.
And the folks that we were on a call with said that we should expect a match, but it might be as generous as the state kicks in 90% and the district kicks in 10%. And so while Enosburg Elementary, well, that's the neediest thing that we have right now, we're willing to wait another month or 2 to see if the state's gonna pick up 90%.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So that's the thinking behind it.
Okay.
I know we're dealing with the stormwater situation. I talked to Morgan about it, it just makes sense that we have kind of an engineer say that it's right. We know, it's pretty easy to look at and see what needs to be done.
Yeah,
These will have their stamp on it,
no, for sure.
go forward.
So you're looking for a motion or just a direction?
It would be a motion to allow us to use capital reserve funds for the boiler replacement project at Cold Hollow, the paving and sidewalks at Richford Elementary, and if you want to give us that authority now for the site work at Cold Hollow, that's fine, or we can wait and see how the grants play out. My guess is we'll have an answer long before your next meeting, so.
I think I'd like to, I think I would like to see how the grants pan out.
Okay.
I could be talked out of it.
No, I think it's fine.
Okay. So I would entertain a motion to expend capital reserve fund for the boiler and the sidewalks and paving at Richford Elementary. Is there some more discussion?
I didn't know if we wanted to cap it, if they wanted to cap it at a certain level, if it goes above that. Yeah.
Come back.
What would be reasonable for those two projects?
I'm gonna say 2 boilers. Per boiler is gonna be between 30 and 34,000, so. Times 2.
Plus getting them installed. Okay, so 90 to 100?
No, that'd be, we've
Oh,
got
that's
enough,
installed.
we've got enough now, yeah.
Okay.
We're probably gonna be right around that ballpark, they're pretty consistent. I mean, barring, like I said, being able to get it and whether or not there's been a big increase. I know we're finding out today that in some of the other equipment that we're going out and buying, we're kind of trying to get it moving quickly because we know there's gonna be a 5 to 7% increase on it. We better.
Okay.
And whether or not we can get, I mean, I waited 4 months for a boiler in Bakersfield. We ran on 1 boiler all winter this year, which obviously was nice. So,
Okay, so
If you're gonna,
so 60 for the 2 board.
I would probably go a little higher, I'd probably go 70.
7, okay.
Yeah,
And then paving, I know, is in flux every waking minute.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
And you know, Morgan and I talked about that as well. I mean, you're in Vermont. And there's 2 ways of doing it, the Band-Aid way and the right way. I mean, obviously, if we're gonna do it the right way, we've got to put a good base, 18
Right.
inches, and do it right. Or it's gonna come back.
Do you,
go ahead.
I always say this just because of the 2 hats I wore, is like, we know the town's gonna be doing some paving. Like, I wonder if we could get our rate down if we somehow joined hands.
We, kind of going down that path with one of the projects right now.
Okay. Granted, that'd be a different town.
Right.
Right, okay.
if you do put a cap on it, just give us enough space so that we're not losing
Time.
4 weeks.
Right.
Okay. What are you thinking for the sidewalk?
Right.
I couldn't put a number on that right now.
At town meeting, I know that Joey spoke of, it was gonna take $100,000 to do, it was $100,000 to do like a mile of paving.
That's paving, right?
That's not even doing base, that's, he said skin coat.
Are you talking parking lot or are you talking sidewalk?
Yeah, oh, this was just like to
Yeah.
pay for the paving material. Yeah, but, so, I don't know. I don't know what it was. Would we bid that anyway? Yeah, we would see the bid anyway. It would come before us, before we actually, would we see the bid? No, you would see the
If
bid.
you want to, I mean, for the paving, we could probably set it up so that the bids are due
We're,
the day of your next meeting.
So you should have them for our next meeting.
I don't see any reason.
4 week turnaround.
And I would have the bids for, the 2 boilers.
Okay.
As well as the digital controls. I'm walking through the, quote follow with Friday for the company to upgrade digital controls as well, so.
Would we lose any time by waiting for the bids then? You still gotta have the bids anyway, right?
Right, I mean, you can't even get a contract to call you back right now until it's snowed out, it's gone, they're all plowing snow right now. I mean, I did reach out to one, and he's very interested, but again, you gotta be able to see what they're bidding right
Yeah.
now. with all the
Right.
snow. But I've got I mean, and again, looking at some of these projects is kind of, do we go with the basic, I mean, like, when yours comes around, I mean, it's crazy not to set a couple of bases and put some light poles in there, it's dark around there. It's the same thing with some of the other places as well. You got a shot to do it. We did one at City School years ago. And they did it right. The parking lot still looks as good as the day it was put in. And so I mean, if you do it correctly and do it right, I think you're gonna be happy with it. You know, it's gonna be some money up front, but
I guess my question is, like for the boilers, like if we wait till next meeting to listen to the bids, are we gonna be losing any time for the boilers?
I put, I'm trying to think what did I say, April
April
4th?
Yeah.
April 4th.
Yeah, you would have them.
I'd have them, so, and, I mean, these guys do them, so they should be able to spit those bids out pretty fast. Yeah.
Okay.
Like I said, I sent out 3 today, and I'm gonna send out another 2 just to make sure I can get my 3 bids, because, and, like I said, the biggest challenge is gonna be getting equipment.
And that's for, what school?
Excuse me?
What school is that for, April 4th?
Oh, that was the boiler.
Yeah, for cold haul.
And the paving, do you remember what?
Paving was, I just sent that one, or I did,
Yeah,
I
that was later in
sent that out to, Bakersfield Town. Trying to think what the date was on that. Well, I think that one will probably take a little bit more time than the boilers, just to be able to get people in there to take a look at it.
Right.
We are kind of trying to team up with Brigham Academy as well, because the parking lot is right there, and if we don't pack onto it, then they're gonna seam it, and it's gonna
Right.
like garbage. So, and they sounded, I talked with Lance, lawyer, and he sounded very interested, so I sent him a copy of the scope today. He was gonna present it, I think maybe every other Tuesday, I don't know. But he said that they would expedite it and see if they want to tack onto it. So basically, we set up the scope kind of as a 2-option deal, whether they want to climb on board with us
Right.
or.
So we have the paving scope ready, which we can just copy for your district and send out for each for them to
Yeah,
put out.
exactly.
I
Okay.
would say that, you could give us a cap on the boiler project, and then if it comes in, all the bids are coming in over, we can bring them to you the next week.
Yeah.
And then we can, I don't know if we'll get paving bids back, Richford back by the 12th, but we can try.
I'd be
Really-
shocked if we got paving.
So if we put a cap at 80 for the boilers,
I think, yeah, I would be comfortable with that.
Okay. I forget, did I have a motion on that?
So I just wanna make sure I have it right. A motion to expend capital reserve funds to replace the boiler system at CHCC with a cap of 80,000?
Yeah. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
And who made it? Did you make it, Paul?
Rick made it.
And if, I would say just be aware that Vern and Nate and I might start making moves on the site work before your April meeting if we're worried about scheduling. So, we'll go through the grant process, but we may,
Okay.
well, that's right, so I'm a
we
little,
may be a couple weeks into that when we come back to you.
for the grant writing, or for
The
the,
grant is not, there's not so much writing as, Nate submits it and they say, yeah, site work is gonna work for your money in this case, or site work's not, and if they say not, then we're gonna go with the steel building and say, well, this work and whatnot, but as soon as we get a yea or nay on the site work, we'll probably bid that out.
Okay.
okay. Perfect.
Okay. Okay. Anything else, Nate?
No,
Okay. All right.
Is there a motion for the other 2 projects you listed or not yet?
So I thought for the paving, we were gonna wait to see the
Okay.
bid.
Okay.
And then the site work, we were gonna wait on the grant funding, notice. And that brings us to board business. Our next meeting is April 12th. SU board representative report, I was not at that meeting. Were you at that meeting, the 28th?
I was at that meeting.
Oh, what happened?
I'm not sure.
Okay, see? I know, it slips right out of the brain.
Lynn, what are we talking about?
I'm looking, hold on. Well, while I'm looking for this, you spent a lot of time talking about COVID and making a decision
Oh,
about
making decisions
masks.
about that. Good job, good
Yes,
job.
I understand that.
Oh, you did?
I did.
And,
We spent an hour and a half talking about the transportation.
Oh,
Oh.
the transportation.
That was very, very lengthy. Hold on, I'm here.
Kind of rewarding in a weird sort of way.
really?
Yeah, well, it was. Yeah, it was enlightening to know we can't do much.
That we're pretty efficient
Freeing,
with how we're
was it?
doing it.
Huh?
That we're as efficient as we probably can be
Yeah.
with what we're doing. with
Oh, okay.
transportation.
So, and it was interesting to see all the different routes and how much time kids were kind of spending on
On buses?
buses. Yeah.
What's the max time?
90.
90 minutes.
90 minutes.
What we didn't
We don't-
have
we don't
was
know.
like how many,
Okay.
and yeah. We had a food service spotlight from Dawn that was pretty great, talking about the surveys that students did around, how to feel about the food and food service.
Did we get improvements in some areas?
No, we didn't do a
A
comparison.
comparison?
I didn't see that like a side by side.
Okay.
Anything you wanna add about that one?
Nope. But we did establish our goals, right?
Oh, yep, she shared the goals.
So the board approved the draft 22-23 calendar concept.
Okay, yeah.
And there was a conversation about consideration for a shift from marking period to trimesters, not a decision. And I'm not gonna ask the board to weigh in on that for the pre-K 5 and pre-K 8 schools only.
Oh, okay.
So that the teachers are weighing in on that, and the leadership team will take a look at those responses. They've already had one conversation, they'll have another about the pros and cons to that shift.
Okay.
Board adopted mission, vision, goals, talked about negotiations. Gab spent a little time, well, she had a pretty in-depth flexible pathways report, and the board approved moving forward next year with continuing to
Okay.
to offer the flexible pathways
Yeah.
academy to students. And anything that you can think of? Did I miss anything under yours, Morgan? We elected Fran Jackson as the SU treasurer.
Okay.
That's pretty much
We
it.
did put you back on the negotiation.
Okay.
Okay, so set future agenda items. Does anybody have anything they wanna add to the future agenda? Other than the bids? Okay. And meeting adjournment. Yes, Sarah makes the motion to adjourn. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? So moved. Thank you everyone for coming.